This is Ala Shaheen again from DARPE. DARPE is a platform. It's an online platform that its purpose is to do good, more good for more people in the Middle East, for the women, the youth, the men and children of the Middle East. DARPE is a platform in which we share information, we facilitate sharing knowledge, specifically solutions-driven and impact-driven solutions and methodologies. So we share it with whole development aid partners and actors, including civil society organizations and NGOs, as well as consulting firms and individual consultants. Roglan with us now. Suruthi, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Perfect. Thank you very much for coming. And back to the introduction. Now we have Suruthi from Grand Challenge Canada. As we said today, it's a webinar in which we facilitate the sharing of knowledge. And one of the best practices to share knowledge, specifically requests for proposals, in which clients or implementing partners like Grand Challenge Canada comes in and start sharing and discussing the request for proposal. So they share information, they share expected methodologies. So all our grantee or potential applicants can understand more. The more understanding, the better client-centered proposal, the better thoughtful proposal you will be able to submit, and hopefully to be one of those shortlisted. So information sessions is one of the best practices, and I'm happy that Grand Challenge Canada today is going to share with us the information about the request for proposal for the global mental health program. So I'm leaving now the floor for Suruthi. So if you can share, you can start talking and share your presentation. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you to DARPE and Ala for organizing this. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Can you see all that? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen here with you all. You should all have a slide deck as well to follow along, but hopefully this will work. So as Ala mentioned, my name is Suruthi Ragalan, and I'm the program analyst with Global Mental Health Program here at GCC. So today I'm gonna walk you through our seed funding call that's focused on mental health and well-being for young people. And in this presentation, I'm going to provide an overview of the initiatives, our RFP's focus areas, as well as our eligibility criteria. So I want to start with a brief overview of the Global Mental Health Seed Initiative. GCC seeks bold ideas to meet the mental health needs of the most vulnerable 10 to 24-year-olds. We are looking for culturally sensitive, community-driven, innovative approaches to enhance mental health literacy and/or provide youth-friendly services that account for the complex social and environmental factors contributing to young people's mental health and well-being. In order to be considered, approaches need to engage young people with lived experiences from the start. Innovators are able to determine which approach works best for their unique context, so there's no prescription here, but proposals must demonstrate some type of meaningful engagement throughout the development and delivery of the innovation. So we've chosen to focus on youth mental health for this funding call because research demonstrates that there's a clear gap in available services and funding for this demographic. 75% of all mental health disorders start before the age of 24, and research consistently shows that poor mental health for youth limits health, education, livelihoods, and the formation of positive relationships and community. Though 40% of the global population is under the age of 24, only 12.5% of development assistance for mental health is targeted towards youth. So it's a very small percentage. And this translates to approximately 0.1% of the total development assistance for health. I think we're seeing, an increasing need around this, particularly with COVID. And so there's really a need in this area that we're hoping to fulfill. So we're looking specifically for innovative approaches to enhance mental health literacy and/or provide youth-friendly services. So innovations should seek to do one or more of the following: support community environments that promote mental well-being throughout adolescence, creatively approach mental health literacy and psychosocial education, working to embed mental health understanding into the broader community, provide effective and affordable youth-friendly community-based care and rehabilitation, foster resilience and advance mental disorder prevention and mental health promotion, integrate mental health services and/or well-being interventions into existing education systems, address the mental health needs of young people exposed to violence with a trauma-informed approach, and inventively leverage technology that is highly used and trusted by young people. So we're particularly interested in innovations that aim to empower and give a voice to young people, inform local communities, tackle the outcomes of damaging gender norms, support mental health care through youth-friendly non-health delivery mechanisms, and consider the social determinants of health. So, sorry, just one second. So all projects are expected to demonstrate measurable change, and innovators are expected to report against any indicators listed in Appendix B of the RFP that are relevant to demonstrating success of their innovation. So success in this context is defined as evidence from a controlled or limited setting that the innovation improves the mental health and well-being of most young people, the most vulnerable young people, aged 10 to 24. Evidence that the innovation can be feasibly implemented, sustained, and financially supported at scale in the target regions, and demonstrated interest, financing, and/or commitments for uptake of the innovation from key stakeholders, influencers, and partners needed to enable scale and sustainability. So I see that some people are raising their hands. I'm just going to ask that you please wait till the end of the presentation. We'll have plenty of time then, and I can answer your questions at that point. So for youth-led organizations, and I'll get more into the criteria about that later, needing help to measure outcomes with a third-party expert, you can request this support in the application, but you'll need to reserve 15,000 Canadian in your budget, and those unused funds can be returned to program costs. So if you do require additional support in sort of measuring and evaluating success of your project, we can provide that for $15,000, and if that full amount is not used, you can return that to program costs. So for the application, there's certain sections that will ask for this detail. You're still expected to provide an overview of your execution plan and proposed project activities and goals based on the indicators outlined in the appendix. But if you're requiring this additional support, please complete this to the best of your ability. We don't expect you to know information about metrics or details on the timing and method of evaluation. So when reviewing applications, we will be mindful of the addition of this third-party support, and that will help, determine our scoring as well. So this slide summarizes the parameters of the funding. These are all seed level grants for $250,000 Canadian, and they're expected to last either 18 to 24 months. So provided that we receive a sufficient number of high quality applications, we are aiming to award 15 grants, and the target beneficiaries are youth between the ages of 10 to 24 in low and middle income countries. So this next slide goes into the eligibility criteria. So eligible applicants include social enterprises and other recognized institutions. So basically, we can fund anyone that is not, any incorporated institution that is not an individual. So this can include nonprofit organizations, academic institutions, government universities, for-profit companies. These organizations must be in an eligible country, and you can find a complete list of these in the appendix of the RFP. So there's a caveat about government offices and UN country organizations. They cannot apply to be the lead organization, but they can partner with local organizations. So if you are from one of those institutions, please be aware of that caveat. Furthermore, eligible institutions must be formed and legally incorporated in an eligible country, must be able to successfully execute the activities in respective technical areas, must be capable of receiving and administering grant funding, again, are not sole proprietorships or individuals, and are not government offices or UN country offices. And on top of that as well, we received some questions about whether or not you need to submit any sort of documentation saying that your institution agrees for you to submit this grant. That's not necessary at the application stage. It may be necessary later on, but at this stage, you don't need to provide any of those details. So this is about eligibility criteria as well. A project can only have one project lead who must be affiliated with the institution from which the proposal is being submitted. So if you're a project lead, you can only be on one application, and therefore you can't be listed as a collaborator or partner on multiple applications. So if an institution wishes to submit multiple applications, each application must have a different project lead, and each lead must apply for their own unique Flux portal account, which is the account through which we see this application. So each person must have their own account, even if they're from the same organization. So collaboration is highly encouraged, but there can be co-leads, as I mentioned. There is space in the applicant information section of the application form to list any other team members or collaborators. Successful applicants may be able to assign a co-principal investigator during the negotiation phase if you wish. So this is about the youth perspective. If you've had a chance to look at our website of the RFP, you'll see that we've listed that priority will be given to youth-led organizations. However, anyone is eligible to apply provided they fulfill the criteria outlined below before. If your organization has a majority of youth in executive leadership positions who are under the age of 35, it would be considered a youth-led organization for the purposes of this grant. So again, to reiterate, our target beneficiaries for the grant are aged 10 to 24, but for project leadership, youth is considered 35 and under. We also expect that innovators, regardless of age, actively work with youth in their target communities and use their input to shape the development of the proposed innovation. So proposals must demonstrate some type of meaningful engagement throughout the development and delivery of the innovation. Again, there's no set criteria for this, so it's up to you to determine what works in your context and how you'll intend to do that. So this sort of goes over what we won't fund. So we will not consider funding projects where implementation activities do not occur in eligible countries. So again, please look at Appendix A of the RFP to make sure that you're working in an eligible country. We also won't fund innovations that are similar to those previously funded by GCC. So a list of our innovations are available on our website. So please do go through that if you feel like your innovation may be similar, and ensure that you're demonstrating how it is different in your application. And that is assessed on a case-by-case basis. We don't actually have criteria for that, but it's up to you to determine, how the differences are. We will not consider funding projects that involve establishing a proof of concept of innovations for which core intellectual property rights are owned by a third-party institution unless the third-party institution has granted the applicant sufficient license rights to the innovation to permit eventual scaling in low and middle income countries, or the third-party institution is willing to sign an undertaking to GCC committing to comply with GCC's global access policy. So if you are using intellectual property rights from a third party, please be sure to adhere to those two. And please also note that indirect costs are not eligible for this funding call. So as part of the budget, you can't actually claim indirect costs, and there's more information about that on our website as well. So that wraps up sort of the presentation part of this, and I'm happy to take any questions after this. So you can contact us through any of these platforms as well after this webinar. We also have a direct email, globalmentalhealth@grandchallenges.ca, and you can also contact us there. I'll stop sharing my screen now and go to some questions. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you, Saruthi. It was a very interesting, fast presentation. And it's interesting that I'm encouraging everyone of our attendees, and we have tens now of attendees interested in this program, to write their questions so we can get question by question, and taking advantage while Saruthi is here so she can answer the questions. In the beginning, Saruthi, I have a question actually. Mm-hmm. And a comment as well. The question is, your RFP has, I don't know if they are interlinked objectives or two objectives. One is enhanced literacy and psychosocial education, mm-hmm. where the second one is access to effective, affordable, youth-friendly services. Mm-hmm. Are these together, or it's someone can apply application for the enhanced literacy and one application enhanced literacy, and maybe the same one or the same applicant or different applicant will choose to go into access to services. Are they the same or different?
So an applicant is expected to address at least one of the issues, but we suspect that many will address both because, as you mentioned, they are quite interlinked. So that's why we have the and or language. So either mental health literacy and or youth-friendly services.
Excellent. And we'll start now putting some questions. Trying to 1 minute, please. I'm trying to put the questions now for you. I start having the questions. I will start from the chat, and then someone said, "Is the amount of one proposal a maximum of 250,000 or for all 15 projects?"
No, so each proposal will be granted up to 250,000 Canadian dollars.
Excellent. Are the interventions related to COVID-19 impact?
Yeah, so we definitely understand that COVID-19 has had a significant mental health impact, particularly on youth. And so innovations that look to address that also address our other eligibility criteria are eligible.
Okay. 1 minute, please. And then I will get 1 minute, please, because it's a number, so many questions now. I'm just, it's the chat. Okay. Then the question says, will the winner be involved in implementing the full scope of the project?
Yes. So we expect that if you submitted a proposal and you are successful, you and your team will be the ones to implement the project. So we won't be implementing. So we'll provide you a grant to implement that project as outlined in your application.
Okay. And we have another question from Kawthar El-Khouli. She said, as well, I have a question related to the partners. In our case, there are more than one organization to apply for the grant. Are there any requirements in terms of this situation?
So I don't quite understand the question. So you can partner on multiple grants provided that you are not a project lead. A project lead can only be on one grant. So Ella, if you were to be on a grant, for example, you could not be a partner on my grant. Is that clear?
I mean, does this mean that there's a lead, which is the lead organization, yeah. You mean, that's right?
So an organization can apply multiple times through multiple project leads. So if two people at the same organization want to apply for 2 different grants, that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the lead, you mean a person, not the organization?
So the person can only be one. Organization can be many applications.
Okay. Excellent. The second question said from Nader Salama. He asked, could you please illustrate in more details, what do you mean by that the organization should be led by youth, and what is the requirements of the leaders of the projects?
So we expect the leaders of the project will take on the biggest role in implementing. Often they're the ones that, we contract with. So they have technical expertise, things like that. And they're well positioned to sort of implement this innovation as they've applied. So that's sort of the project lead, but we also recognize that no one can do this work alone. And so we encourage you to have collaborations where they'll help augment your impact.
Okay. Arwa Sharabi said, hello, how much can youth-led organizations gain financial? I mean, maybe the budget of the grant. Is there a specific time for organization to implement project and spend the given grant? And what are the consequences?
So we expect grants to take between 18 to 24 months, and successful grants will start April 2021. So you will have the time period that you've indicated in your application to complete. So either a year and a half or 2 years to spend the full funds.
Okay. And just to remind the people, this is a concept of proof, a proof of concept stage in which bidders will apply their idea for 18 to 24 months, as Saruthi said, and then you have to prove that your idea is working well. And accordingly, you go to the second stage, which is transition to scale with another bigger funding. But only provided that your current project, or the project that the first initial 250,000 Canadian project funded should demonstrate the impact and the outcomes, and that what you have applied is working, is not just a white elephant. And that's why there is this kind of monitoring and evaluation in the beginning. That this monitoring and evaluation should be, I understand, Saruthi, that should be incorporated into the work plan, in which there are certain milestones that grantees should achieve and should measure. So you go to the second phase and the third phase until you finish the project, the proof of concept, then you go to the transition. And that's why you said if organizations do not have the capacity of monitoring and evaluation and the way to measure, they can recruit a third-party monitoring evaluation. Is this right?
Yes, the third-party evaluator will be provided by us, by GCC, and we match to your needs. It is only for youth-led organizations. So I mentioned in my presentation that those with executive leadership 35 and under are considered youth-led organizations. They are eligible to apply for this additional support.
Excellent. The question from Sherry Sam'an, she said, I mean, is the Global Challenge Canada only providing the grant or other legal roles in partnership with embassies or Ministry of Education or Ministry of Youth or any other stakeholders?
So we will be facilitating your, if you require, like a lot of global mental health projects require scaling through public sector, we recognize that. However, we will be providing those connections, but as part of your transition plan and scale sustainability, this is something that you can be thinking about. We will provide grant funding as well as other technical support through venture advisors or other pieces to help through the scaling part of it. So there is that additional support, but we will be leading the charge on that.
So that this means that sustainability is one of the most important items of this project, in which that makes, if this is a project sustainable, evident, could be scaled. So sustainability with all its pillars in terms of technical, policy, financial, all of these social, business, yes, are important to be shown in your proposals. And then we have a question from Mahmoud Shaltut. He said, thank you so much for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. When is the deadline? And you mentioned a caveat in the eligibility criteria. Caveat?
Yeah.
Could you please repeat that? My connections was not the best at that point.
Sure, no problem. So applications are due July 17th. As I mentioned on this Flux portal, we suggest that you register for an account by July 9th, which is very soon. So hopefully if you're interested, you can do that soon. So the caveat is around government and UN organizations. They cannot actually apply to be lead organizations on a grant. So like the Minister of Education in Canada cannot be lead on a grant proposal. You can, however, partner with UN and government organizations to do this project.
Okay, to be partners in the project so they can facilitate the delivery of the project.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so facilitate the results, to bring in the results. Okay, this is great, but they cannot be the lead, that's right?
Yes, they can't be the lead.
Okay, perfect. And as I want to mention to the all participants that Grand Challenge Canada doesn't apply, it does only receive proposals and on their own platforms called Flux platform, in which there is the e-application, which people start applying there, putting your ideas, and each question is there. You can save the draft, and then you come back again. And what Saruthi said, it's very preferable if you start doing this before the 9th of July. So you put your starting application, the deadline 17th of July. The second question from Majida Aushrin. Is psychosocial support in conflict situations eligible?
Yes, they are definitely eligible. So we haven't defined how, what context we're expecting psychosocial support in. The challenges for the most vulnerable youth aged 10 to 24. So definitely conflict afflicted zones are eligible.
Conflict situation eligible. So for instance, like Syria, Iraq, northern Iraq.
Yeah, so you just have to make sure that the implementation country is also eligible in our criteria. Okay,
perfect.
Yeah.
Does the grant address gender?
Yeah, so there are cross-cutting themes around gender, environment that are important to GCC. So there are questions that look at how you will address gender. We also, are expecting some innovations to address gender norms and things like that. So definitely gender is an important component of the call.
Perfect. There is another question from Nabiz El-Mirani. Can we add innovation related to integrate mental health on the level of primary healthcare centers?
Yeah, so I mean, again, if your application is interested in this context, maybe increasing access to youth-friendly services through primary care, that is an eligible idea. Just please be sure to look at our criteria for institutional eligibility as well as project lead eligibility. So again, government offices are not eligible, but government universities and government hospitals are.
Yeah, I will add on that question. Sorry for that, but does this mean that, for instance, if an applicant would partner with primary healthcare system, the government systems, in which they can integrate and embedding the mental health there? Is this part of this is preferable? Is this part of sustainability?
Yes, this is definitely part of sustainability, partnering with key stakeholders who can scale up your idea.
Yeah, because I remember that on one of the applications you mentioned, there was mention of Ministry of Education, for instance. Okay, so the Marling Ogila, she said, is it necessary social, scientific, and business innovation included? This is a very great question, by the way.
So those are the three approaches that are central to GCC, and those are the three approaches that we see as needing to be integrated in order for successful scale up. We don't necessarily expect you to have all three figured out, but we would like you to think about at least two of them where possible, and be thinking about sort of that framework in terms of scaling up your innovation. So it's not a hard criteria, but something we highly encourage.
Excellent. Akram Amro said, can we apply from Palestine in issues related to environmental protection? Yes.
So I don't know if Palestine's an eligible country. I'd have to look that up for you. It should also be in the Appendix A of the RFP. But in terms of environmental sustainability, I mean, you'd have to demonstrate how that relates directly to mental health literacy and psychosocial support. So again, environmental themes are important and cross-cutting, but the focus of this call is mental health services and mental health literacy.
Exactly. Is there a cost for administration through the administration costs?
So direct project administration is part of something that you can budget for on our application site. Indirect costs, no. So costs, for example, utilities, things like that. That's something that is not eligible under this criteria.
Excellent. Do we have a list of countries that are eligible to apply?
Yes. Appendix A of the RFP has a full list, as well as ODA eligible countries as well.
Layla Barsoom, she said, does it have to have a technology component? So we have to be innovative?
Well, we expect that, some projects will inevitably use technology. I think I mentioned that in the presentation. Again, that's one of the pillars. So that may not be the pillar that you're focused on, and that's fine. But we do see technology as part of scale up in some projects where appropriate.
Excellent. So Amira Musa says, according to your answers, that means that one organization can apply for many grants through different lead persons working in the same organization. Please confirm yes or no. Yes,
that's correct.
Okay. Then Tony Elmir, he says, thank you for the presentation. Does community-based psychosocial support activities led by youth volunteers is something that you might consider?
Yeah, so that definitely falls within our eligibility criteria for an eligible idea. So definitely that's something that we would consider, provided all the other criteria are met as well.
Yeah, and I remember that the project has three. There was like three major important pillars: that innovative approaches, culturally sensitive, and community-driven. So community-based psychosocial could be part of the community-driven solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then we have Muhammad Zimmo. Are interventions that focused on enhancing the youth psychosocial well-being accepted?
Yeah, so that's a major focus for us in this RFP, so definitely.
Okay, and read the role of proprietorship in eligibility. I mean, this proprietorship in eligibility, what other legal statuses apply to eligible private companies? Should it necessarily be an educational institution?
No. So again, the only we can mostly fund an organization that is legally incorporated and registered in an eligible country. However, sole proprietorships or individuals who have some sort of legal corporate standing, they're not eligible. So you would need to be more than one person.
Partnership company.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation from Shireen Shabana Khan. She said, we are not youth-led organization, but the innovation will be youth-led. And more of the youth are in decision-making. So she's asking, is this okay?
So in that context, you can definitely apply. There's no barrier for applying. In that context, though, you would not be considered a youth-led organization, but working with youth. So definitely you can apply. There's just that small difference.
Excellent. About the matching of the grant, there is a modeling from Ogula. She said, does the proposal require a match from the applying organization? Match?
No, there's no match at the seed level.
Okay. And Kauthar Al-Khuli, again, she said, my organization is a Canadian nonprofit. I wonder if are there any method to apply for the grant? I have a partner in MENA to implement the project.
Yeah, so that's eligible, provided. So if you're a high income innovator in Canada or the UK, you can partner with a low middle income innovator in the MENA region or anywhere else and implement that way. So that's eligible, yes.
So Canadians-based NGOs can be lead.
Yeah, they can be lead implementing in an eligible country.
Exactly. Okay. So Rowaina, I have so many questions. Come on, so Ruthie, it's too many actually. So we have from Rowaina Murad. She said, should the innovation idea hit all of the mentioned areas, technology, science, social business, or it can be a combination of two or more of them?
Yes.
This has been answered actually. This question has been repeated again about the three things together. Which Grand Challenge Canada, I think you call it integrated innovation?
Yes, that's our larger framework for our work.
Okay. And then Saad Hamid, she said, do you have any reference by how you define innovative? What's innovation you mean?
No, I mean, it's up to the applicant to demonstrate innovation on their end and to explain why in their context, their idea is innovative. So something that's innovative, for example, in the MENA region may not be seen so in South Asia. And so it's up to you to contextualize your idea appropriately.
Exactly. So modeling, Ogila again, also, is there a limit rate for indirect operational costs?
Yeah, indirect costs are not eligible. So 0 for that, yeah.
But operational costs that are allocated for the project expenses out of
direct project administration.
Okay, excellent. Akram Zammo again, can we get the link of this for starting the application? Of course, yes. Can you take the link? We will send you the link for the application directly today for everyone applying. And I hope Christine, if she hears us, that Christine, if you can type the whole link of the Grand Challenge Canada in which people can go and apply directly. Thank you. Then we have Joe Zarour. He said, what is the criteria for budget amount determination? You mentioned up to 150,000 K.
No, so that was for the third-party evaluator. It's up to 15,000 Canadian dollars, 15. And anything that's not used by the third-party evaluator will be returned to your project for your program costs. So you won't lose any funds in that sense.
This is for the third party, you mean?
Third-party evaluator, yes.
But he's asking about the criteria for how you determine the budget. You said up to 250. So maybe an applicant can apply for 100,000.
We expect that given how broad our ask is and how much we're asking innovators to do, that $250,000 would be the amount that they would need to successfully complete the project.
So this is the ceiling. People are encouraged to apply. The issue is how are you going to invest this money?
There's no minimum. There's no minimum amount.
There's no minimum, exactly. And then Liliane Barsoum, concerning results, it says something about publishing results in an open source. What exactly do you expect?
So part of, and there's examples of this on our website as well, but we expect that if you've had a success or failure, whatever it is, in your establishing your proof of concept, that you write that up for learnings among the larger global mental health community in an open source article. And if you're successful and get to that stage, we can definitely help you with that process as well.
Excellent. Tony and Amir, again, we have an account on Flux to apply to other organizations. Is it possible to use the same account to apply for this RFA?
Yes, if you're using the same project lead, you can use the same account, no problem.
If it's the same project lead, but they cannot, if it's the same project lead, but if the project lead is different, they have to have another account.
Different account, yes.
Okay. So then we have Rania Fuad. Can the activities include income generating activities, economic empowerment?
Yeah, so there's no caveat against that. It would just be up to you to demonstrate. Again, that's part of scale and sustainability. So demonstrating how that would work.
Okay, then we have Ayman Shahid. He's asking, is there a specific quota for each region, for each country?
No, there's no specific quota.
Okay, so you are going to award 15 grants, the best 15 grants.
Yes, exactly.
Wherever they are coming. The ideas are important here.
Yes, exactly. And in the RFP itself, if you've had a chance to look, there is very detailed scoring criteria to let you know how that will be determined.
Okay. And then Aldo Michael, he said, could you please share your definition of indirect costs?
Yeah, so if you look in the RFP, there's an external link that explains that, and so that will provide more detail than I probably can right now. But again, if you have more specific questions, feel free to email me.
Okay. Will the winner be involved, from Ruwaina Murad? She said, will the winner be involved in implementing the full scale of the project? If yes, will be at the same amount of fund or extra fund will be granted for the full implementation?
No, so we expect that you propose something that you can do within the $250,000, and then you implement that within that scope.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, we don't implement the idea. The innovator who's successful implements the idea.
So the ceiling, the maximum ceiling, 250,000 K is for the proof of the concept, in which you implement the project 18 months to 24 months, and after that, if the project proved to be successful, scalable, then they can go to the second stage, which is scale to transition to scale.
And that's a very different application process and everything else. But yeah, for this stage, we expect you to use the 250K to fund activities.
But this is, by the way, this means that Grand Challenge Canada is a great partner, actually, because it's you start with the applicants with the first 18 months, 24 months, and you continue with them so they can further longer term activities. So it's a great partner, Grand Challenge Canada.
Yeah, our hope is to cultivate ideas that will make impact for sure.
Yeah, okay. Then we have from Zaina Isa. She says, apologies for my connection. So she said, went out on the part where you were explaining the details of the proposal. Do I get the right when saying that this stage is applying an idea that has to be sustainable and can be monitored, which will be granted 15,000 US dollars, where after approvals, another grant will be added for the idea's implementation? Here is something missing.
No, so I think there was some miscommunication there. So we're asking for you to submit a proposal for up to $250,000 that addresses the call of the RFP. Of that, if you're a youth-led organization, you can allocate $15,000 for an external third-party evaluator to demonstrate your impact.
Okay, so let me repeat it again. It's a 250,000 Canadian dollars for the project, the grant. The 15,000 is only are allocated by Grand Challenge Canada, in which organizations can, if they don't have the capacity and ability to monitor and put a monitoring and evaluation capacity in the project, then a third party, someone else could be hired, subcontracted to do this kind of monitoring and evaluation. So this is two different amounts. It's the amount of the grant is 250,000 Canadian.
Yes, and of that, the 15 will be allocated for the third-party evaluator.
Out of that.
Out of that.
So it's not additional to 250,000. So no. Okay. So someone can apply for 255,000 Canadian plus 15,000 of.
No. Sorry. No. So 250,000 Canadian is the maximum.
Yes.
If you need the third-party support and you're eligible, 250 minus 15,000
Yes.
goes to the evaluation.
Yes.
But the maximum is 250,000. There's no
Perfect.
255 nothing, just 250.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yes.
And then Aldo Michel said, and are you supporting them in this call? No, we don't. But this is for us, by the way, I think.
Okay.
Truthie. We are only a facilitator. DARPE is just a platform in which we connect people together. We try to facilitate. This kind of conversation for us is a plus because we have people from Canada, from the north, and talking to the ones on the south. So this is, we connect north to south. We facilitate that. We are only a facilitator in which we are a platform to share knowledge. Thank you very much. Ayman Arandi, he said, we are a social for-profit venture. Our sustainability is based on sales of mental health solutions. Such a grant can boost our impact and reach. Would having sales as a sustainable model lower the chances for the application?
No, so there's no bias against sales. It's just the scale and sustainability is in part so thinking about how to be economically sustainable, but also how to partner with the right people to increase impact. So if I can give an example, so your idea at the proof of concept stage might be a curriculum that you develop to better psychosocial mental health literacy for youth, correct? You do it in 2 schools. But to scale that idea, maybe you connect with the provincial or state level ministry education people to do that all schools at that level and then move it up nationally. So that's sort of the scaling that we're talking about. Does that clarify?
Yeah. If an organization is applying in partnership with on the ground youth organization.
Yeah, so we encourage partnerships for sure.
Okay, and the executive leadership that is predominantly youth, is that of the partners? Is that considered an eligible case?
No, it has to be the lead organization.
Okay, excellent. Did you mention that applicants needed to have a proof of concept to qualify?
No, so this is about establishing the proof of concept.
Exactly.
So the proof of concept is your idea. So if maybe you think an app will increase mental health outcomes, better mental health outcomes in youth, then this is your chance to prove that idea is true.
Sorry, I didn't mention some names before, but they're now from Rahman Khan. He said organizations. Does it have to be NGO or private sector can apply?
Private sector can apply, yes.
Okay, and another question from Suha Khufash. He said our organization is mainly dedicated to supporting persons with disabilities. Our board and management team are above 35 years old, but we work closely with youth organizations and parents of children in order to implement our activities. Is this okay?
Yes, totally fine.
But she said that they're working on disabilities, but not on mental health.
Yeah, so you need a mental health angle to apply for this grant, but in terms of eligibility criteria, you're eligible.
Exactly. What is from Isabel Chiari? What is supposed to be the relationship formal between the primary BI, primary investigator, and the organization?
So you would need to be affiliated with the organization. So for example, many researchers, their organization is their university. And so through their university, they can funnel this grant and then do activities. So it would have to be a relationship similar to that, not necessarily that exact one. So for example, if you are executive director of an NGO, your relationship to your NGO is what we're talking about.
Okay. Then we have Osman Dinner. Should implementation that focused on youth with mental disability, is it eligible?
Yeah, so again, looking at the most vulnerable 10 to 24-year-olds, we haven't, given a caveat of it has to be around disabilities or not, just the larger, broader goal.
There's a good question from Mustafa El Masri. He said, is there an inventory of previously funded projects?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that in my presentation. It's on our website. So if you go to grandchallenges.ca, there's a full inventory of everything we funded in the past. that would allow you to see if your innovation is sufficiently different.
And the grantee applicants should prove that in their proposal that
Yes.
so they have to read this inventory.
Yeah, so if you feel like it may be similar, you need to read the inventory to demonstrate how it's different, because as I mentioned, we won't fund innovations too similar to what we've already funded in the past.
Okay. Is coaching considered a psychosocial, psychological approach for well-being? Coaching.
I can't speak to that. It depends on the framework and theory that you're using. So that's not something that I can exactly weigh in on.
And what about from Mahmoud El-Shoni? He said, is the school drop out of school is one of the topics that can be worked on?
Yeah, so again, talking about community and schools and things like that is definitely part of our eligibility criteria. Just please be sure to refer to your slide deck to see more detail. But again, the two main ideas are mental health literacy and youth-friendly services.
So this means that if they dropped out of school of students, that is related to mental health issues. So they can take it from the mental health issue angle or perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then Mustafa Al-Masri is there. He said that we answered this question. And when you have from Royana Murad, what is the required scale of a proof of concept? Country, region, group of people?
Again, we're not determining that for you. So it may be that, you want to work regionally. It may be that you're working from a city to a larger province or state. It's up to you to determine what's the most appropriate scale-up plan for your idea.
Okay, so the second question from Mona Yunus is the same. What is required, the scale of proof of concept? Country, region, very particular group of beneficiaries, how much details are you expecting? Same answer for the previous question. Is that
same answer? Some of the flux questions have character limits and some don't. So please just be sure to adhere to those limits where appropriate.
Okay, do you still have time? Do you have still 9 questions or shall we?
I have time for a couple more questions, yeah.
A couple of questions and we finish, and then I think Suruthi, you will have the list of questions. So if potentially,
there's also a very fulsome FAQ document on our website that's embedded that is accessible to anyone who goes there. So a lot of these questions have been answered in that document as well. So I encourage you to look there as well.
Yeah, okay. And there's a question from Royana Murad, which has 3 questions that already has been answered. One about the scale of proof concept. The one is about technology, social, and science together integrate innovation. And the winner will do the work. Then, is it okay if the applicant organization is already a recipient of the funding from the Canadian government? Already they have funds from the Canadian government. Does it make them ineligible?
No, there's no ineligibility criteria around that. I would just make sure to refer to the document, but as far as I can remember, there's no ineligibility around.
Okay, here's another question from Rajib Sharma. He said, is it possible to select all the keywords in project tagging? Do we need a log frame?
There's no log frame necessary. There's a maximum number of keywords that you can choose. So we suggest that you choose the ones most closely aligned to your project.
Exactly. And then we have another question from, again, Rajib, under section F. He said, okay, Rajib is doing his homework. So he's going to F and section E. Thank you, Rajib, for your excellent work. Under section F, how can we scale up our innovation?
So again, that's up to you to determine. So for some projects, it may be scaling up to the provincial and the national scale, right? For some projects, it may be working regionally. So it's up to you to determine what is the most appropriate scale-up plan for your innovation, because not one size is going to fit all.
Yeah, okay. Then we have a question from Niveen Khalil. She said, can individuals apply for this project?
No. So again, those are considered sole proprietorships and they're ineligible.
Okay, okay. What if we cannot team with the Ministry of Education, but we can reach the children away from schools? Is that okay? Yeah,
that's appropriate. Like you may be an NGO that has a very deep connection with youth who are not currently in schools. That's a completely viable possibility. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Does the grant address even indirectly gender-based violence issues?
Yeah, so we definitely see connections between mental health and the pandemic and gender-based violence and food insecurity and all these different pieces touching mental health. So we see So that's again part of the social determinants framework that I mentioned in the presentation that we see as impacting mental health.
Okay, I have other three questions, but I think they have been answered all. One is about is youth organizations are mandatory. I mean, youth-led organizations.
No, they're not mandatory.
Okay. Then said another guy, his name is Mahmoud El Shoni, said there are many topics are related to each other, school dropouts, school ills. We have to prepare 2 applications, or if we can put them both in one application. What do you think?
Again, that's up to what you think would be the strongest for you. But if you require 2 applications, please choose 2 different project leads.
Suruthi, we have come to an end.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering for all the questions, and I'm hoping that our attendees have benefited from this information session or this RFP. And thank you, Grand Challenge Canada, for this transparency and giving your time for the benefit of applicants, so they can better be informed to apply for your applications. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much. And I just want to add that when Christine sends out the website, there's a lot of resources on that website, so please feel free to use them. Again, a lot of these questions and more have been answered there as well.
Thank you so much, and have a nice time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.